Hello, this is James D. Kahn and back for another libgdx tutorial. And today we're going to be looking at bullet physics within libgdx. So the purpose of this bullet series is that there's plenty of bullet tutorials out there. There's a lot of guides and forum posts on the internet already. But I was not able to find any video tutorials for using bullet with libgdx. So the goal for this series is to cover the basics of setting up bullet for libgdx and using the library. I will be releasing some videos over time, so if you're in a hurry, then I would recommend checking out Zappa's bullet tutorials, which are the go-to tutorials to get started with the bullet in libgdx, and I'll include some links to those in the YouTube video. So just getting started here, let's talk about bullet from an overview. So Bullet is a 3D collision detection and rigid body dynamics library. It's open source, it's free for commercial use using the zlib license, and it's been used for movies and even AAA titles on PC. It's been ported to consoles, even mobile devices. And a modified version of Bullet was used in Grand Theft Auto 4 in the Rage engine. Now, Bullet in libgdx. So Bullet is written in C++, and libgdx has developed a Java wrapper around Bullet's native code. That means that when you use Bullet, when you're calling Bullet from libgdx, Java is actually making native calls to the Bullet library that's in C++. So let's get into some pros and cons. First off, for pro, Bullet is free, and it's widely used and open source. libgdx has integrated it. That's another pro. And it has built-in raycasting, which is a nice feature. It has soft body dynamics as well as rigid body dynamics and just basic collision detection as well. For cons, it can have a steep learning curve, especially if you're not familiar with physics engines and how they work. Bullet documentation is sometimes lacking. Now I'm going to show you a little bit later. There are some documents out there, but they don't cover everything. They're good, but they don't cover everything. So sometimes it's hard to find documentation on what you want to achieve. Now Bullet, so with Bullet, you have to rely heavily on the forums and or do your own digging to solve issues. I know I've had to do a lot of either digging through old forum posts or going through the code, going through the C++ code to try and understand what's going on behind the scenes. One other con is that in libgdx, Bullet is not officially supported on GWT, so you don't have Bullet available on HTML builds. If you're doing desktop or Android, you have it, but you don't have it on HTML. So the question next is, should you use Bullet for your project? And to answer that, I've got two approaches here. So if you need 3D collision detection and full-on physics simulation for complex shapes like a car, then yes, Bullet is what you should use. Now, if you are able to get by with just simple box collisions, and you don't need any kind of physics simulation, then no, Bullet is probably overkill for your needs. Instead, libgdx has bounding boxes, and you have bounding box intersection methods that you could use instead of having to use the Bullet physics library, which would be overkill if all you need is just, did this box collide with this other box? For documentation, if you head over to the GitHub repository for Bullet 3, in the docs directory, you'll find some PDFs. Particularly, you want to look at the Bullet user manual. I would recommend downloading this, and it's a great reference with a lot of information in it. This is going to be your main place to go. Even though it's version 2.83, libgdx is 2.87, but it hasn't changed much. Now, also, there is pybullet.org, which has a forum, and there is a support forum here, General Bullet Physics Support and Feedback. Whenever I need help or whenever I'm looking for something, chances are someone else has already asked it, and you can find a lot of information here on Bullet. If you want to see Bullet in action on libgdx, I've used it on a couple of my game jam submissions, like here, the Time Cruise, and on Time Cruise, I use Bullet to handle the collision detection and dynamics for the cannonballs hitting the terrain, as well as the cannonballs hitting enemies and getting a callback on that so we can damage enemies. And then the same for the enemies shooting at the player, so I can detect when the cannonball hits, and then just take some health off of whoever got hit. Now I know a pain point for a lot of users is Bullet when they're getting into 3D and libgdx, and so I want to just say as one last kind of precursor is that you got to take your time, read through the manuals, look through the code. Just because Bullet is not one of those things that you're just going to get in one day. You could get it up and running in a day, but to really get familiar with it, it's going to take some time. And let's just leave it at that for the introduction, for the overview. And next up, I'll have a next video in the series, which we will set up Bullet inside a libgdx project and get some basic collisions going. Thanks.